BoardRoom podcast. Good morning. It's good to see you. I'm
Good to be
psyched.
seen.
What's that?
Good to be seen.
You know what the Irish say? Better to be seen than to be viewed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
People are everybody's looking for views. Everybody wants the views.
They do, don't they?
What have the Irish been correct about in the last century anyway? 3 centuries?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. Uh, hey, tell me about your new digs because you invited me to come up to Basham's. I couldn't make it for the MR thing. It looked like a ton of fun. What's going on up there?
Mike and I, we've been partners in all things Lost, Mayhem, Catalyst, retail for 30 something years. But, we bought that whole compound. Brad kind of raised everyone around here. San Clemente building boards. He's kind of been a fixture, and he passed away with an unfortunate accident a couple of years ago. And then his sister tried to kind of keep it going and run it for a while, and she was just like, "Wow, this really isn't for me." It's so day-to-day grind, and we were able to purchase it from her, the property and the business, what was left of it, and continue the tradition of what Brad always did, was foster and help develop the local board building community, from all the brands. He helped us immeasurably over the course of our, history, all the way down to just the guy who makes, a couple boards a year in his garage and needs a place to get them glassed. So we're continuing that tradition, but building upon it with the kind of stuff we do.
Wow, that's cool, man. And so this is Mayhem HQ, Basham's. Does it still have the Basham sign out there, or what's that?
We took that old surfboard sign down and we moved it inside. We hung it over the blank area because we still, we distribute blanks for when I say we, I mean Basham's. We took over the blank distribution, so we deal with Arctic and US blanks. We hung that old board up above there. It's like a 16-foot giant. It's like a shortboard shape, but the size of a behemoth SUP or something. We made a new sign. It says Catalyst at Basham's, so it's kind of collaboration. We kept the name Basham's. We're operating under that name. And yeah,
that's cool. So the legacy of Brad continues.
Yes.
And
yeah,
that's sweet for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Is this where I guess a surfer would go if they wanted to order a custom board from you? Are you doing custom boards for your average guy, or are you too busy to?
No, we do a lot of customs. I think customs is our specialty, actually. We partnered with the Shape 3D guy, Thomas, about 8 years ago, and his board builder app. And it's like on our website, our Catalyst websites, and guys go on and they like lay out a board exactly how they want it. And people really get into it. They love it. It's kind of like designing a car on like a car website. You pick your color, pick your interior. And it works really good. We still do a lot of personal touch. It's a lot of, the kids on the floor at our downtown Catalyst store and our stores in Florida and our Catalyst website. It's very hands-on, a lot of customer service, a lot of direct talking people, but we get a ton of customs. People can order customs at Basham's. It's just getting started. Basham's is barely open. We worked on the factory side for the first few months of the year. You have a door opening behind
That's
you.
my dog.
Yeah. So we worked on the factory the first few months of the year. Gutted it and refabricated it to the way we need it to glass, boards. We have 3 shaping rooms and 3 laminating rooms and a whole factory, building our boards and inviting shapers to come from around the world. We've had Shane Horan in, we had Mark Richards, we have Eden Saul from Dead Kooks in the factory right now.
Oh, cool.
And then it's there to glass boards for the local board builders and garage guys. We're doing a ton of that as well. So then we start moving on to the retail, and we're still like hammering away at redoing the retail, which includes a full hardware store, like a shaper's hardware store.
Oh, cool.
And blanks and all that sort of stuff, tools, bringing in tools from Australia, from Japan, from France, all kinds of cool things.
Regarding customs, and you mentioned color, and I thought to myself, can somebody go in there and get custom color from your daughter? Like, could I order a board and go, I want art by Ryder? And it was like, is that an option?
It's not an overly public option, like on our website, and you can't like click on one of 50 of her paintings and down and go, I want that. You kind of have to be in the know. You know, she's an 18, she's an 18-year-old girl. She just finished high school. She's going to art academy in Laguna this fall. She's pretty busy just being a kid and actually trying to keep up with the board she paints for the team riders and local friends. And I mean, she literally gets buried just doing boards for all the girls on tour, or fun girls like Sky Brown and Aaron Brooks and Mason Ho, who's not a girl, but he's fun.
Well,
Yeah.
a couple things. You obviously were brought up as a Grom. I don't want to butcher your history, but I want to say in the mid to late 80s, maybe early 90s. And you had guys like Herbie comes to mind, Herbie Fletcher, who sort of, you were in his shadow. He sort of mentored you, I'm assuming.
Fair enough.
Um,
Yeah.
who are some of the other guys that you look to that sort of guided you along, or even maybe didn't even guide you, but you went, oh shit, that guy's the man. Like
There
who
was
are
a lot
some?
of underground guys, and most of them still work for us. You know, like in that area, it was called the Herbie Fletcher shop. I started there in June of '87, and it was a little retail, and in the back was a factory. I started there at 17. So instantly I'm like thrown in, and Christian's like starting to hit his stride. Nathan's like the hot 13-year-old ripper doing airs and stuff. Archie was around. The Paskowitz were always there. The Christian Fletcher surfboard thing started not long after that. Um, and Herbie was like the figurehead. It wasn't, the place was run by Jim Nudo and Tom Sutherland, Sudsy. You know, Sudsy ran the glassing, Nudo ran the retail. Both of them now work in our thing. They're both in their 70s. So the guy Suds, he's an airbrusher and pin liner for us. He's a fantastic craftsman. He taught me so many things behind the scene, how to build boards. And Nudo ran the retail back then, but now he's running that glass shop for us. And we still glass in that old Herbie Fletcher shop. I've been there 30, I don't know, 37 years or 38 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But those guys behind the scenes really mentored me. But to name drop, I mean, Herbie would bring in people all the time. Mike Hinson lived in our parking lot for, I think, the summer of '88. Reno would come and stay for months, and Herbie like, oh man, Reno's gonna do some boards for the shop. And Hinson did all the longboards for the shop one summer, living in a motorhome in our parking lot. Um, you know, a lot of guys like that passed through. A lot. I can't even think of them all.
What about, I think of guys and help me out here because I'm not, what about like R Slay or
Randy was always there. Yeah, we call him Dad. We call him, yeah, the dog. So Randy was always there. Randy really taught me how to refine planing rails. Jim Fuller, you know, would taught me how to rough out boards. He was always around. Production shaper, Jim Fuller, big monster. There was a lot of guys. Like I said, I can't think of them all.
yeah.
Seen like Walter Hoffman passed a couple days ago. Walter would always come walking through, and he'd see me painting all kinds of crazy shit on Christian's boards, and he's like, "Come up to Hoffman Fabrics and draw some stuff for me to print." You know, so I was fortunate to fall under his wingspan a little tiny bit here and there, and yeah, I mean, Herbie would have me draw templates for Astro Deck grips in the '80s. It's like people like, oh, you guys are making grip. I'm like, man, I was designing grips for Herbie 35 years ago. Yeah.
I mean,
So
that place was just there must be so many fun little anecdotes from that ghetto in that period of time.
there was wild stuff. I was a fly on the wall. I just kept my mouth shut and put my head down and worked. And if I did cool stuff, things would happen. You know,
Yeah.
the first few years, everyone would want me to paint their boards, and it took me some time for anyone to be confident to let me shape them boards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another name that pops into my head, and this is probably more in the early 2000s or maybe the mid 90s, is Brian Bulkley. He was doing
Yeah.
loss.
Bulkley, we started out, we were glassing Brian's boards. He had a shaping room in the canyon in Laguna, and Sudsy would go, hey, go to Brian's and pick up. He's got like 6 blanks for us. And once you get going, you're going, you deliver 6 blanks or 8 customs, whatever. And then you'd pick up the next batch. I'd go up there in a van. I was a teenage kid. And so Brian was always polite and calm and well spoken. So I got to know him in the late 80s doing that, even 87, probably 88. I knew his boards well because a lot of the kids at Strands in Doheny, where I kind of learned how to surf, were he would sponsor like the local 14-year-old rippers and stuff. A lot of kids I hung out with rode him in the early to mid 80s. And then as time went on and our brand grew, Brian came to me. He's like, hey, my thing's slow. I just want to make a living. And he started production shaping for us, probably 96, 97, and worked with us for 20 years. I think he retired and right before COVID.
Yeah.
He still
Have you,
comes.
have you spoken to Brian lately?
I spoke to Brian. I speak to Brian half a dozen times a year. He comes through. He's into making guitars right now.
Exactly. Yeah. He's making guitars.
He'll just come into my office with a crazy guitar. Hey, I just drove down from Oregon. Look at this thing. And we'll hang out for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But he has no interest in working. He'll make like 2 or 3 customs for friends. But yeah, we have to share. We share a birthday. We're actually, I think we're 15 years apart or 17. I'll be 55 in a couple days, and gosh, he'll be 70.
Wow.
Yeah, we're 15 years apart. I also share a birthday with Michael Ho.
Oh, interesting.
He's going to be 66 or 67, and Connor Coffin, who's significantly younger than all of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, shifting gears a little bit, it seems like you travel a lot, Matt. How many miles do you put in a typical year? Has this been a busy year for you travel wise?
This year's picked up a lot of steam. I spend most of winter snowboarding. I have for the last, I've been snowboarding longer than I've been surfing, but we finally got ourselves a place in Mammoth about 13 years ago. And since that started, I spend as much time as I like in the winter, I basically just chase the storms. So I'll go to Mammoth and do like a 4 or 5 day storm cycle, ride the storm, ride the glory day after, get the scraps another day, and then come home and binge work until the next storm. And then around spring, I usually start traveling, usually to support the business. So this year, we've in the last 8 weeks been to Australia, where we have great manufacturing and distribution. We were there. We went to the Narrabeen event, the Challenger event, went to there. We drove around. We surfed the new wave pool in Sydney. It's kind of fun. Wave Garden. We surfed Snapper 3 or 4 days, my son and I, the whole Superbank thing. And then we went to El Salvador, where everybody, a lot of buzz about that place coming along and revamping its whole world. So we went down to the event there, and it was great. We had 3 out of 4 surfers in the final, and that was super fun. Men and women combined. And we build boards there. There's a guy there with a hotel and a factory and a machine, and we've been going down there and building boards the last couple of years. Us and Sharp Eye, we work with them, and it's not a big business, but it's cool. You go down there and you make boards.
And is that up there by by the capital, by Libertad, or is that down?
Yeah, it's out there in Tunco, like right in front of that wave Bocana. His hotel's basically right in front of that left Bocana, and it's literally an 8-10 minute walk to go up and ride the big slopey Makaha wave at Sunzal there. So we surf all the waves and we work. And then I just went to Japan. I hadn't been to Japan since before COVID, and we went and visited we do local manufacturing there. We're working with a few factories there. And we surfed the wave pool in Japan, and that was great. That
was awesome.
Yeah.
That was a ton of fun, man. Roster Rob just launching on the first wave of the event. And that was just like, holy shit, man.
Yeah, our whole crew, their first waves were amazing. Mason and Ian Crane, they all got like 3 of the scores that ended up being the highest scores of the whole event. None of them made the final, but it was just great. It was so fun. It was so lighthearted. Sam and his crew of like soldiers, they just put on these amazing events. And I just think he's just an incredible guy who's really putting the surf world on his shoulders and running.
Yeah. I
Macintosh.
agree with you. I'm a huge fan of Stab, and I'm a premium subscriber, and they're kind of leading the way. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about it. And I think it's because you've got a hardcore surfer that's in charge of it.
Yeah, and he's an animal. He's a great surfer. I used to make him boards when he was doing the QS in the late 90s. That's how we became friends.
Hey,
Uh,
what are your thoughts on Zeke?
I think Zeke's amazing. And it's easy to not know. If you don't know him, like maybe kind of like me, I don't know. Like if you don't know him, you're like, who's this asshole I think he is, you know? He's got that brash,
He
callous, just
he's got 1990s Lost, man. He's got the 90s Lost vibe, in
he
my
really
opinion.
does. He really does. And it
Yeah,
wasn't just Lost, but it was like a 1990s vibe. Even like the Santa Cruz guys were had that, you know. But
hmm
yeah, he's a sweetheart. You know, I didn't realize that he was completely sober for quite some time and super focused. He was there, and I had a couple great raps with him. And you know, his surfing's perfectly fine, and he's nimble like a cat and does cool things. And I
yeah.
think it's great. I'm a fan. He went to Bali right after, and he ended up with our crew there. We have that White Monkey Surf Shop, the Lost Surfboards kind of headquarters. And my guy that Pete that runs that whole thing, he's like, dude, Zeke's a hero. You know, he's amazing. He's here right now. I love him.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his as well. And as much as he's brash and sort of out there, he's also has a lot of humility. He's the first one to be like, "Hey, man, I'm not the guy for this. What you know what I mean? Like he's got some humility."
He did a crazy, he got a crazy 2 air wave somewhere in Bali a few days ago and posted it. It was really impressive. But yeah, so anyways, you know, when you actually meet people, you get more of the real them than Instagram and what you think they are.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I wanted to talk to you a little bit. We've got the Olympics coming up at Chopu. The waiting period's July 27th. I think it goes to August 4th or something, August 7th, something like that. Now, I counted 4 athletes, Matt, that are riding your boards in the Olympic competition. I'm probably missing some, but I got Carissa, the reigning gold medalist, Carolyn Marks, Griffin Colapinto, Joanne Daru. Is he still riding your
Oh,
boards?
yeah, you found the John Duru. Yeah, we made him a quiver in Europe. The guys at Olatu at Puka's built him a quiver of Lost there, and then I duplicated it here, so he's ready to go. He's the only true Frenchman go in the Olympic in the surfing event.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
he's.
interesting.
I mean, I think there's a couple Tahitians,
Yeah,
but
Kalu
he's
Vast.
probably the favorite on the women's side. But
Yeah.
yeah, so John's amazing. He's an animal, and he's still going. He's probably 35, and he can win some heats down there. You know, he can beat people.
Oh,
Those
for
are
sure.
really good, beautiful surfer.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the men's division, I look at the men's division and yeah, look, Gabe and Griffin, and I actually looked at the betting line. Gabe's the favorite if you go to
I would
DraftKings.
agree.
Yeah.
Agree,
But
Gabe.
not by much, not by much.
You know, if it's well, Gabe's crazy because if it's huge, he's like yawns and glides in, and if it's small and tricky, he's virtually unbeatable because he
Yeah.
takes up so deep. And then when it's small and deep and like running, that's where like the really good backside guys like John and Jack, the Australian, that's where it gets a little harder for them, and that's where Medina can really separate himself. You know, and Griffin's obviously no slouch; he's right there in the mix. But it's a very stacked field. You can't forget about Idolo and who just won the event, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's really exciting. I think that the process worked. I'm sure on the lower side of the draw, there's of the seeds, there's some people that probably shouldn't be out at 6 to 8 foot chopu
Yeah.
compete against those guys. And on the women's side, especially. But in
Exactly.
the end, I mean, they got a lot of there's, I mean, who's out there that didn't make it that should be there? There's,
I mean, I think on the women's side, you could say there's probably a few more. The men's, like you said, the men's draw
yeah, the
looks
girl from
legit.
Pipeline, maybe, you know.
Yeah,
But yeah.
exactly. That's a good one. So I named 4. Are there did I miss any other Lost riders, any Mayhem Shaper riders that,
I think there could be a Japanese girl, but I'm not sure. There was a Japanese girl that we just made her some boards. I don't know if we made her boards for Chopu, but
okay.
she doesn't really ride for us. I don't think so. I was kind of, I haven't, no one ordered Chopu boards besides those 4.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And looking at the boards that you posted of Griffins, I think that and I might have got this wrong. I was trying to dig down into it. It looks like there's some sub drivers and there's some whiplashes. Is that
They're
correct?
step drivers,
Step driver. Okay.
step drivers and whiplashes. Yeah.
Yeah. And are there just five of the same exact board for breakage?
Griffin, that whole wall behind him of boards, maybe two of them or three of them might not even be for the event. They might be just like 5'11", 6'0" shortboards to have.
Mm-hmm.
But 8 of them or 10 of them are exact copies of the boards, not almost exact, but basically copies of the boards we made for the Tahiti event, the WCT event. And they run, there's like a 6'0" that is shaped like a 6'4" would be. There's like a super pintail 6'0" for that aforementioned draining little tight waves, if it's
Mm-hmm.
shocker. And it's up to like, I think there's one crazy 6'8" that's like, 2 3/4 thick with knifey rails.
Huh.
But
That's
mostly it's like 6'2", 6'4", a couple 6'6" just in case.
yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're interacting with these surfers, like Carissa, all four of them, do you sense like an anticipation and an excitement for the Olympics that you haven't sensed just in normal CT events? Are they excited and understand the moment?
It's important, but it's not like I don't see any more nerves than normal. I don't see, it's really important, but it's another event. These kids have been doing it since they were like 8 years old, getting their rash guard tied in a knot behind their back. They're just going through the steps. These are all surfers who have won multiple world tour events, world titles. It's important, and I think the people like us that are in the game, we see the importance, we appreciate it. It's really fun and exciting, but I don't think it's not like if you're a sprinter and you're running or a pole vaulter and you're doing your thing in obscurity, all through high school and college, and then you're going to these weird obscure events around America and even going to Amsterdam and doing the pole vaulting worlds. It's like there's like 12 people watching. And now all of a sudden 100 million people are going to watch them do their thing. These kids are used to having live feeds and world tours, and it's part of the game for them.
Yeah. Carissa, though, is interesting to me because she's not on tour. Um,
Depressing for me.
I'm sensing kind of a swan song, to be honest. And I don't have anything. I don't know why, but I just feel like this is it for her. This is it. And God, to repeat as a gold medalist would be insane. So I feel like there's a little bit more. I
Oh,
don't want to say pressure, but maybe excitement or
definitely not
anxiety.
pressure. And if there is pressure, it's on her, it's on herself. But there's definitely a desire and a grunt. She wants to win it. She's focused. She did a couple trips there in the last 6 months. She wants it.
Yeah.
And I would say she's probably after Vahini, she's the favorite,
Yeah.
to do it. She's just such a calculated and strong surfer and competitor. But yeah, I think it's a pretty fair assumption. I think it'd be hard for her to go out and grind again on that tour, especially against all these hungry little girls. She's probably
Mhm.
just watching them going, oh, it's just relentless. And if there's one angry little girl, that's fine. But now there's like 3, 4 angry little girls that rip, and you're gonna have to beat a couple of them. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, and even the Tahiti event, like you've got John, Jack, Griff, you got John Griffin. If you're Griffin, you got John, Jack, Idolo, Medina. And if you want to win the gold medal, you're gonna have to beat at least 2 of those guys.
Yeah.
And
That's
it's
amazing.
gnarly.
Yeah.
So I think Krista could look at the Tahiti draw and be like, okay, I can win this thing, no problem. But for her to sign up to do another year on tour and have to surf against all these angry little 18-year-old girls when she's already got everything. She's got the gold medals. She's got 5, practically 7 or 8 world titles, depending on how you look at it.
Exactly.
And all the money, all the success, great husband, great life. And it's 31, 32 years old almost. It's like, okay, you
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
I haven't been told that directly by her,
Yeah.
but I'm sensing the same thing you are.
Yeah. If you have a heat and you're looking at, say, in a couple 3 weeks and you're staring down Carissa versus Carolyn Marks. What's that like for you? I mean, you're almost like a patriarch. You're almost a father figure to these women in some
Been
regards.
with both of them since they were 15. I usually will, like, if it's early in the event, it sucks, but they're high seeds, so it shouldn't be. But when that happens early in the event, you're just like cringing and you can't, maybe you root for the one who needs it more.
Yeah.
And then, on the men's or the women's side in general. And then is that bar on the screen?
Oh, you're good.
Okay, my eyes are shot. I'm all jet lagged and haggard. Um,
I
but
am looking at the draw.
if
They're
it's
on the
late in the
opposite
event,
side of the draw.
if it's late in the event, what I do is I usually pour myself a good tequila and watch and enjoy.
Right.
Like at El Salvador, I think El Salvador. No, I don't know. Some of the event we've had multiple events this year where we had both finalists, and you just pour a good drink and enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Specifically on the women's side, there's some surfers, and you sort of touched on this earlier, but there's this Chinese girl, Siki Yang or something like that. She's from China. She's probably
Yeah,
16.
I surfed with her in El Salvador a year ago. She was surfing Bocana every morning. She's got the little short hair, kind of looks like a boy almost when you're on the beach and she's out there ripping. She surfed pretty good. She's kind of ripping that low Bocana left in El Salvador. Is she in the Olympics?
Yeah, she's in the Olympics, and if it's
Yeah.
6 to 8 feet, I'm kind of there might be heats where no waves are caught.
Yeah, there's a possibility. Like I said, there's definitely some people in the women's draw that might be a little sketchy, but Sawyer Lindblad had never been barreled in her life, and she pig dog a slabby one at uh at backdoor and back in January. She's like, I've never done that before. And they're like, what, get barreled at backdoor? She's like, no, got a backside tube ride. And then she got a crazy one at Chopu. So I mean, she's awesome. She's been part of our friends and family since she was, in kindergarten. But
Who's riding her boards? I mean, what boards does she ride?
she rides my boards.
Yeah, okay. Sawyer's in it. Okay, I didn't
Like
mention
Ryder,
that.
my daughter's best friend. They learned how to surf together at Doheny and like when they were
Oh,
6.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Her brother Taj, her parents are we spent the 4th of July with all of them. Um, yeah, good friends for a long time. But yeah, you look at the Chinese girl or some of these other girls, you never know. I mean, that girl's strong and determined, and she could huck and pull in and blow people's mind.
Look, it's solid at Chopu today. Yesterday was solid. Today is supposed to be macking.
Griffin's
Um,
there.
yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Are you hearing anything from your people on the ground about, like, say, the young Chinese girl? Like, are you hearing like, oh, Felipe is actually surfing? Is Felipe there surfing? Like, I'm wondering if you're getting any insight from people on
I
the
haven't
ground.
heard anything.
Yeah.
I know Griffin went Monday night and he's coming home like tomorrow or the next day, recouping and then going back. I haven't
Yeah.
heard any gossip or anything like that. I thought it was kind of strange. Like I'm a Felipe fan and he lives here in town and he's really cool to all the kids and he's the best surfer in the world on any given day. Um, I'm a fan. He's rad. But I thought it was weird, like last month where he posted like a 3-foot foamy wave at Chopu. Like, oh, I'm here at Tahiti ripping. Like, I don't know if he did it to be funny or I don't know. I don't understand it. It was like, whoa. Like,
Yeah, I think all of us want to see him kind of get the monkey off his back. I mean,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, let's put this story to bed. Just go out there and do it,
Yeah.
and that way we don't have to fucking talk about it anymore. I'm kind of sick of it.
Yeah. It's I just thought that photo that he posted, I thought he was almost like stirring the pot with it.
Maybe he was. Maybe
Like
I bet he
laughing.
was.
I do find it crazy that he chose this year to take off. Like his head must be really fed up. You must really be fed up with something to take off a year where the finals are at lowers and it ain't gonna be there again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for him to like, he could have to be he would glide into the final five, and then to
Yeah.
go to lowers and have a chance to three-peat, like he must really be fed up to
Yeah.
this year off. And then next year it's at Fiji, which is definitely not his cup of tea.
Yeah. There no more world titles for Felipe is kind of what I'm hearing from you.
I don't know.
All right. Good answer.
I mean, if they go back to the non-final format, he could win world titles. And
Yeah. Yeah. Um, well, how are Carissa's boards different than Carolyn's boards? Are they,
a lot bigger.
yeah, a little bit
Pretty
bigger?
much the
Yeah.
same design. You know, that's the
Yeah.
thing. Around the world in hot dog events and waves and normal kind of surfing, the boards designs can kind of vary a bit from surfer to surfer. Uh, but when you start making boards for pipeline and chopu, things sort of streamline, and most everyone's kind of on the same equipment, except say like Mason Ho, who wants a 7.6 that looks like Uncle Derek's 30 years ago. But uh Carissa rides out at chopu, she'll ride at 6'4" to 6'6", literally 2 3/4 inches thick with like John Roseman crazy rolled knifey rails, you know.
Oh,
And
interesting.
Carolines are like little mini me versions of those, maybe 2.5, 6'2", 6'0".
When you're on the computer, yeah, do you have, do you shape those things into the computer or
Yeah, I design everything in CAD and then we cut
yeah,
them. So I
yeah.
just in my office here where I am now, designing CAD. I have folders with every surfer's name on it. I have his board numbers I can search and find. It's all historical. The surfers are all, I don't want to say trained, but they're like, oh, this board was great. You know, here's the board number.
Mhm.
I want to go a little thicker, I want to add some volume, but I don't want the rails to be thicker. So then you got to figure out what they want. Or I want to go a little wider and skate a little more in mushy ways. And then you start with where you were and adjust the file, cut the board, look at it, finish it. If you like it, do it.
Does that, as a shaper, as a designer, does that get a little, I don't want to say boring, but maybe boring relative to say like designing something like, I know you have this new board, the Pisces out, like is that more fun to do because you're sort of outside the box more
Yeah,
as a
it's fun and
designer?
it's freedom, but
Yeah.
you use the competitive stuff to drive you to, well, one thing, it builds confidence in the market. All the servers go, well, if he's good enough to design boards for the, he, you know, and then, but yeah, obviously designing a fish and adjust, adapting fish from one to the next, taking our classic fish and making it fatter and wider and flatter for super groveler, and then refining it a little bit for an everyday board, and having fun with the logos and the adjusting fin placements and all that's super fun and creative, but it's also, there's pressure. You want it to hit, the shops believe in our designs and believe in our creativity, and they buy a bunch of them around the country. You definitely want it to happen. You want it to take off. So then you got to concentrate on marketing, and you get the little cheeseburger and do funny little, skits and
Yeah.
film guys ripping on it. And it's all a process, and it's challenging. It's both sides is challenging. Making boards for the hot surfers is very challenging. And yeah, you kind of chase your tail a little because it's always refining or updating or tweaking an existing board. But then when you step back, of that cycle 3 or 4 years and look at a board, you can see that, like, like time or like erosion on a cliff, it slowly changes, and the boards do slowly evolve, you know, um, which is really interesting, but it takes a little bit of a lens of stepping back over a few years. You're just making baby steps. And then in the market, and that's a lot of more reactionary, and just, I'll write a board and go, oh, this thing's great for me and my friends, and I'll fine tune it and make a cool looking, marketable, fun, easy to ride board.
El Patron.
El Patron, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, that was a good one.
What does your file look like? You must have a file that's the Matt Biolos file, right? For you personally.
Like I'm evolving and degrading. My boards just keep getting bigger and fatter. And
What are you riding? What's the smallest board you'll ride?
well, in the wave pool in Japan, I was riding 6.0 fish. It was like 39 liters, black sheep, epoxy carbon little thing. If I don't have to paddle and fight with the crowd, I mean, I surf one of the most crowded waves in the world. And then when you travel, you go to El Salvador and there's 60 people out.
Yeah.
So in the ocean, I'm riding pretty big boards. I remember watching you at K38s on a giant swell, and you were riding this giant board, and I'm like on a 6'4", and you're just paddling circles and laughing at us all, like gliding in on like some bonzers. And like, and since then, that was Hurricane Marie like 8 years ago, or maybe more. I don't know. In
Hmm.
that time, I've kind of come to the realization that you were kind of on it. But my guess, I'm more a little, I try and in that world, but I'm doing kind of things to my boards where I can still get kind of radical on them, at least radical for
Hmm.
220-pound, 55-year-old, big old Jewish guy, you know?
What does that mean? Something to the tail, like extra
Yeah,
tail
I like
rocker?
a lot of tail rocker. I like lowering my nose rocker and really exaggerating my tail rocker. And so I can kind of like what's going on in the log genre. You know, those
Hmm.
guys, the nose rockers have never been flatter on log world.
Yeah.
And tails, you look at the tails look like of a log nowadays can look like a Kelly Slater elf nose from the 90s.
Yeah.
And it
Wow.
works. It's bitching. And I'm kind of in doing that on my mid lengths or my, I don't even know if they're mid lengths, my 6/8 and whatever. Is it really a
So are
mid?
you riding like a 6.8 Patron? Well, like
No,
at lowers, like,
I mean, that's a pointy nose shortboard, that's like, I'm not even riding those right now.
okay. All right. So you've got like one of your mid lengths that's
Yeah,
6.8.
my go-to is the smooth operator. I started doing that in 2018. And
I've heard great things. My friend bought one of those and he loves it. He absolutely, and he's like 63 or whatever, he's like, he's kind of like us. He's a
I
big
would say the
fan.
difference is I just tend to use more tail rocker than, like, if you pick up 20 mid lengths, mine tend to have the most tail rocker.
Interesting. And I've been sort of on a Twinser push. I don't see any Twinzers in anywhere on your site. What are your thoughts on the Twinser? Have you given it a thought? Or
Oh, I
are you-
totally have. Like before COVID, I tried to go on a search to find Will, and I wanted to do a Twinser. I wanted to develop it with him, and I wanted to pay him a royalty because no one's doing that. And I was super interested. And I remember I got a board from that Manny Cairo guy. It
yeah,
wasn't a Twinser. He made me a quad, and I had my French buddies glass it all fancy. And I've always liked. I think his stuff has a good aesthetic. He's really underground, but um, I don't even follow him on Instagram anymore. But I know he does some really cool Twinsers, and then Stu Kenson's like a Twinser kind of guru. And I reached out to Stu. I'm like, how the fuck do we get a hold of Jobson? And I really want to do something. And I just kept coming up against block walls, and I didn't want to do it on my own because I feel like I'm in the spotlight and I don't want to look like a ripoff guy. So I just kind of faded away and I haven't really gotten into it, but I see people doing it and I think it's really valid and cool and fun. And my mind's just so busy doing so many things, I haven't pulled the
yeah,
trigger. And that's
yeah.
my Twinser story.
Maybe I'll have you make me a Twinser if I can get enough time out of you.
Yeah, I think it'd
Uh,
be really cool if we could find. I know
well,
he's
where did that lead you if you're looking for Will Jobson? Like I've heard he's in Santa Cruz, but I've heard
that
it's
too.
might not be good.
Probably not.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't want to say anything I don't know about.
I don't know. You
Yeah.
know, but yeah, I talked to Stu. Stu's the one guy I talked to about it, and he gave me some leads, and it just kind of went nowhere. And then I'm just so busy. Like,
Rusty brought Will in a long time ago,
yeah,
like 20 years ago. And that's where Rusty sort of got most of his mojo for that C5 thing.
C5, yeah.
So Rusty might be a guy to talk to. But yeah, it sounds like
I talked to Rusty. I mean, we do little texts and Instagram DMs,
yeah,
uh, but I don't know if I talked to him about that. This was
yeah,
pre-COVID,
yeah,
like years ago.
yeah. What about the competition between the shapers? I know there's this kind of like overriding sense that you guys are all bros and you guys bro down together, and maybe that's the case, but between like JS or DHD and say Marcio and for sure Britt at CI and you, I'm probably missing a couple of Pizel. What's it? What's it? Is it really like a bro fest, or is there some competition there?
I mean, I've never been to any of their houses,
Right.
but I don't go,
Yeah.
I would say I have a good, I probably spent 3 or 4 evenings with Sharpbot with Marcio in El Salvador. We were at the same hotel. We had dinner together. I have a good relationship with him, professional, and we both share an interest, a passion for like World War II airplanes and stuff like that, random nerdy stuff. John Pizel and I have great relationship. Spent a lot of time with him in Bali over the years, randomly, here, here and there. Britt Merrick and I have developed a relationship. There's definitely like man to man, it's good, but there's definitely tension business wise,
Mhm.
He's good. Darren is kind of a funny, we're always have fun and laugh, but we don't go out of our way to hang out. Like I'll be in the Gold Coast and not see him, and he'll be here and not see me. But at a contest, if we see each other, then we start talking and laughing and gossiping. I probably have the closest relationship with Chris Christensen because of our snowboard life. He has a
Mhm.
house up there by us, and we're like the two surfers. We're like the two shapers snowboarder guys. We both have snowboard lines. He's with Jones, I'm with LibTech,
Mhm.
and we've really dedicated our lives to living in that world.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, JS is kind of a bit of an outlier. I mean, if we see each other, we're cordial, but I've never really done anything social with him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But if you're a baseball player, or if you're a pro surfer, or if you're a chef, I mean, who are you going to talk to? Like if you're a race car driver, the easiest people to talk to are people that live in your same highs and lows and experience your same frustrations and dreads and elations and highs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get you.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, before I let you go, I want to mention that we're honoring Bob McTavish this year at the BoardRoom International Surfboard Show. You and Bob go back a ways. Do you have any anecdotes, stories about Bob McTavish?
I don't go that far back with Bob. I met Bob at Spain in San Sebastian when the Pukas guys were bringing him into their fold, maybe 7 years ago, and we had a night out, and it was really fun. Um, I don't know how old he would have been then, but over 70 already. And then he was just really fun and inspiring and stoked and talking about modern surfing more than about classic surfing. He's super into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to see him right when he finished up that really cool place of his in Byron with the restaurant and coffee shop, surf shop out front, and the factory in back. And we went in the shaping room and we had some fun, gossiped and talked, designed and played. And he's just super stoked. He's like Grom. And we talked a little about doing his boards here in the US with his son and his manager at the time. This is once again pre-COVID, and it didn't really go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of dabbled in it, and then it kind of faded away. And I haven't really talked to him much since. So I'm excited to see him when he's here, and I think he's amazing and
Yeah.
really cool. But that's my Bob. Definitely that shop of his is a big influence on what we're.
That's what I was going to ask you. Were you and Mike thinking about opening like a little coffee cafe thing out there?
We're doing a joint venture with the local coffee guys here called Sur Coffee, SUR, not SIR. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're going to have a coffee shop in there. It's kind of jumping through the legal hoops with permitting and all that here in San Clemente is not easy.
Yeah.
So there is going to be, it's about the size of a shaping room. It's going to be a coffee shop there at Basham. It's right up front.
Cool. That's
And
perfect.
definitely inspiration from McTavish's place in Byron.
Yeah. And have you been to Chris's new place, Chris Christensen's
I
place in
haven't.
Carlsbad? Yeah.
I haven't. I think we're like heels in the sand. You coming to see mine first, or am I coming to see yours?
You guys won't ever. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, we will. We both said we got to go see it. I mean, I love the fact that he gets all those rad guys, like um, the artists that came down and painted and everything.
Yeah.
Tom, Tommy's amazing. I
Yeah.
grew up hanging out in Dana Point Harbor with him in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like we've said a lot, Matt. I feel like
Said.
we've done it. We've had a talk.
Great.
Anything else? Anything else?
I'm just doing my thing, just I'm going to Nicaragua on Sunday. Going to the Stones Saturday night for my 50th
Wow.
birthday. We got a friend that hooked up my friends and I with a suite, someone who's in the business.
Yeah.
So going to the Stones with all get the wives, go have a big night on my 55th Saturday.
That's so cool.
Morning, waking up and going to Nicaragua. And I'm gonna see if I can still surf a hollow offshore beach break.
You know what I anticipate is Mick Taylor coming out just for Matt Biolos to play
I'm
friggin' Sway or Give Me or one of the great Mick Taylor songs.
I mean, every time Keith sings, I cry. If Mick Taylor came on stage, I'd probably have this hysterical breakdown.
Good for you. I saw your album collection you scored in Japan. That looked insane.
Yeah, Tokyo's incredible. And I mean, if we're still talking, I started going to Japan in the early 90s is when, like when every little shaper got to go to Japan and make boards. And the exchange rate was like, it was like 90 yen to the dollar,
Yeah.
right? It was crazy. I was like a kid in my early 20s. I couldn't afford to buy a can of coffee out of the vending machine, right? It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, you know. And then it kind of started evolving, and it stuck around that 115, 118, 120 for decades, you know, 120 yen to the dollar, 118, 115. And there was all this, the Japan was still booming, you know, and Japanese guys were gray market, black market, buying 10 boards from Jack's or Surf Ride and taking them back to Japan. And it was just all that. Right now, the yen, it's 160 yen to the dollar.
Oh.
It is so, it's like going to a third world country. It's like not obviously the infrastructure and everything. It's like going to New York City, but having the prices of like a third world country. Sushi, breakfast, lunch, cocktails, you name it. It's just crazy. So you go to the record store and the records are like, they'll say, you know, 3,200 yen, you know, 32,000 yen for a, you know, 1970 bootleg Rolling Stones record. You're like, well, it's 20 bucks. In LA,
Yeah.
this would be, you know, 60, 70, 80 bucks. You're just in these alleys of Tokyo record shopping, and it was incredible. And my daughter, Ryder, was buying all kinds of vintage clothing. And so what you have right now is we're exploiting it. Now for my business, it's really hard because it's really hard to, and a lot of these guys that are making fancy, beautiful boards that the Japanese love traditionally, you know, like all the gloss, all the San Diego influence kind of stuff. It's really, really hard for that business right now to sell boards in Japan. So that's why we were there. We're getting a lot of Japanese domestic manufacturing going on right now, building boards there. Great little
Cool.
craftsmen, you know, the full Japanese style, everything's all perfect. So we were like visiting the factories that we started working with and setting up just before COVID, because we saw this exchange thing happening. But the shopping there is mind-boggling right now, and it's always been mind-boggling shopping Tokyo, you know,
Yeah.
fashion and whatnot, you know, vintage records, whatever, all that's always been great there. But right now it's shockingly affordable. Unfortunately, the airlines see what's going on and they're no dummies. So flights to Japan 5 years ago were 900, 1,100. Right now it's like cost 2,000 plus to fly to Tokyo.
Yeah. That's
Exploited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was stoked on your collection, and I was
Me
stoked on
too.
the Coltrane and the jazz that you picked out. I think, are we getting old, man? We're listening to jazz.
Okay. I have a big collection of my punk rock, my 80s punk rock. I don't even consider 90s punk rock. That's punk pop. I can't believe that Blink 182 is filling SoFi Stadium. That's mind-boggling, and good for them. What the
Yeah.
hell? But
Yeah.
but most of my time I listen to my records up in Mammoth. It'll be like in the morning before I snowboard, or in the evening with cocktails with friends, what they call opera, whatever. And it's kind of hard to play Black Flag and the Circle Jerks in that genre, in that, you know, in
Yeah.
your house with your wife and your friends. So you start looking for things, and you're like, you go to, I hate to say Starbucks, but you go to Starbucks or a coffee shop, and there's always this really cool music playing, you know, and you're like, well, let's figure out, and it's Coltrane, and it's Miles Davis, and it's Thelonious Monk. It's like, well, this is great. I'm gonna play this when I have friends come over. So then you get into it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how that evolved for me. But yeah, we're getting old. There's no doubt about
I
that.
love it. I love it. We're listening to Miles and George Benson. You probably purchased handkerchiefs.
I don't know one. What's handkerchief?
Man, handkerchiefs. I bought myself some handkerchiefs that I put in my pocket. I blow my nose with it.
Uh,
That's when you know you're getting old, when you buy
yeah,
handkerchiefs.
I just plug one and blow it out, and plug it up and blow it out.
Okay, well, we're gonna leave it there, bud. That's
Thank
good. I
you.
want to get a Twinzer from you at some point if you're into it. I
Okay.
know you're busy, but let's try to circle back maybe in
User
October.
smooth operator.
Yeah, smooth operator Twinzer.
Yeah.
Love that. All
Okay,
right, well,
fine, Will.
I'm gonna roust you.
Thank you.
Okay, buddy. Talk to you soon. Thanks.